The Brian Crabtree Show on demand is brought to you by Bright Path Mortgage. Brilliant mortgage solutions. BrightPath.com. The Brian Crabtree Show, live in Atlanta, afternoon starting at 4 on Biz 1190, Biz1190.com, and the Biz 1190 mobile app.
I've been haven't talked about this a lot, this story of the Grenfell Tower in West London, where 80 people died in a blaze last month. And there was an article in the New York Times yesterday that said that more lives could have been saved in this Grenfell Tower blaze, according to firefighters, but they had a lack of equipment, particularly fire engines with ladders high enough to reach the top floors of the 24-story building. They think it's almost criminal, these firefighters, that an international city like London, 13th richest in the world, the highest ladder only goes about 30 meters. That's 100 feet. That's about what I was able to find in metropolitan Atlanta. I suspected we might have a taller ladder truck than that, and I couldn't find one. We've got to call into the fire department, and hopefully by tomorrow's show we'll have that confirmed. But the tallest ladder truck I could find in metro Atlanta, or at least in the city, is 101 meters tall. And inside the city, there are dozens of mid and high rises, most of which in that category are taller than the reach of the ladder. And so the issue with the Grenfell Tower is they're saying they could really only get up to maybe the first 10 stories of the building. They rescued 65 people out of the blaze, but the other 80s died that were higher than the ladder truck capacity, and they couldn't get up there to get them because the fire was blocking their access. They documented a 100-foot aerial unit that wasn't called until 1:19 a.m. on that tower in London, about 25 minutes after the first fire trucks were sent out. Almost showing, also, in addition to not having proper equipment in that international city, showing that they were sort of mismanaged in what really is their primary role. And I had started to talk about this in terms of not having the proper equipment, showing up half an hour or deploying this truck half an hour late that's of the tallest capacity of London, as to what happens in a socialist society when you focus on making sure that you give everyone rights and benefits that are not God-given. Healthcare benefits, government in socialism. Let's just call it what it is. You miss the primary function of government, to keeping order, keeping people safe, firefighting, police efforts, military. And you spend all this money on all these other things. You can't afford the basic primary necessities. And I thought, well, this is where we're headed. Now, I'm not saying that the Atlanta Fire Department would be this slow at deploying their largest truck. I'm saying I'm surprised, given the fact we have 70 plus story buildings. I know the Westin Peachtree, I think, is the tallest one at 72 stories, if I'm not mistaken, if you count up the restaurant at the top. So what happens if this type of blaze erupts in a high rise in metropolitan Atlanta? How do they handle it? I mean, you've got fire trucks that can go up to 300 feet, but it doesn't appear that most major cities have one of them. There's not that many of them around the world. So I think this Grenfell Tower blaze, albeit it was a much worse fire because of the cladding, the aluminum cladding used on the building was not recommended for buildings higher than 3 stories. And the developer, when they renovated this building about 3 years ago over in London, saved a whopping $10,000 by going with this cheaper vinyl cladding that wasn't as fire retardant, and it allowed this fire to burn much more out of control. It could have been better contained, and perhaps dozens of lives could have been saved had it not been for that. So that's an aside, but again, it wasn't a violation of code over there. We don't allow that here, so perhaps we don't have this kind of cladding on these buildings. But I'm wondering, other than sprinkler systems, which might or might not be enough, if we're going to see this as a wake-up call here in America that perhaps government, this is mostly local, but it also has some obligation to the federal government to help local states and governments come up with the funding or ways for funding instead of some of the other garbage that government works on to keep people safe in the event of a massive fire. There's a state of emergency, or I misspoke. There's a statement. A statement of emergency in Nevada. I don't want to miscount this. Governor Brian Sandoval has endorsed the department's call, the Department of Taxation in the state of Nevada, for a statement of emergency which would allow more dispensaries to become licensed distributors, because the nearly 50 dispensaries in the Las Vegas area that have licenses to sell for recreational use marijuana beginning July 1st are running out of pot. There have been so many pot sales in Nevada that they want to now allow alcohol wholesalers have their exclusive rights to move marijuana from growers to retailers in Nevada as part of a temporary court order that was extended by a Carson City district judge in June, promote the goal of regulating marijuana similar to alcohol. They had in stock marijuana dispensaries started selling that July 1st. They expect to run out in coming days. Boy, there'll be some tourists upset about that have booked their tickets to go take part of the gold rush of marijuana in Nevada. If they want to raise taxes and find new revenue sources, this is probably one of them. And I can't find significant evidence in all of my reading that this is some sort of scourge on society. I think it's a little ridiculous that people feel the need to go and rush out to buy their first legal joint of marijuana or pot or whatever, edibles or whatever they're buying, and stand in line for hours like they're buying an Apple iPhone. Well, that was stupid, too, when I did it. Like they're buying the new Apple iPhone that's never before been released until 2007. I don't know if you'd call this drugs, but it could be called cocaine on training wheels, and your kids could easily buy it legally, at least for now. It's snortable chocolate. Chuck Schumer, guy that I don't like, but I can't disagree with him here. I think he's got a point. U.S. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called on the Food and Drug Administration to investigate what is now being sold as Coco Loco, snortable chocolate power product made by an Orlando-based company, Legal Lean. This is a little jar of cocaine-like powder. It started being released for sale last month. It contains the cocoa powder, as well as ingredients found in energy drinks, including taurine, guarana, ginkgo biloba. The company of Coco Loco says it offers euphoric energy and motivation and safely generates a state similar to the feeling of ecstasy. Doctors are, however, unsure of its health effects. News conference Sunday, Chuck Schumer, Democrat leader in the Senate, says, quote, "This suspect product has no clear health value. I can't think of a single parent who thinks it's a good idea for their children to be snorting over-the-counter stimulants up their noses." Since it's considered a dietary supplement, the category is not reviewed by the FDA for safety and effectiveness before it goes on the market. The FDA can step in and evaluate this, and we'll keep our eyes on it. I have a fundamental problem with this. If I saw my kids with this Coco Loco powder, I would not approve of it solely from the reason that it creates the pattern that snorting anything up your nose is a good idea. The only thing I want to snort up my nose, and I don't really want to snort it up my nose, is allergy spray if I can't breathe. That is either over the counter from a pharmacy or prescribed by my doctor, and I don't like that stuff either. I don't think that there's any good idea in putting anything up your nose because we are not designed to take in nutrients in that fashion. Let me think about it. You're putting something in the membranes of your breathing apparatus that's going to clog, irritate perhaps, or it could be even allergic to this stuff. I think this is a role where I think government intervention into business is absolutely necessary for two reasons. This product is a product it's like taking an injectable product. I don't think you can just go buy a syringe and go buy injectable vials of product of any kind that you can put straight into your bloodstream. Why would this be an exception? I guess you could argue that smoking is similar to this and the fact that you're breathing that in and you're not supposed to. Nonetheless, I think this, it's a rare moment. I almost have a heart attack when I can actually agree with something Chuck Schumer, as of late anyway, is saying, but I agree with him on this one. There's a Jesus painting on an Islamic center in North New Hyde Park, Nassau County, Hillside Islamic Center, New York. And they're investigating it as a possible hate crime. A large painting of Jesus on the cross was left, not painted on their stuff, but just left, a painting left on the fence at a Long Island Islamic Center. And police are, at this point, considering it a hate crime. I was blindsided by this story in an interview I was doing on talk radio this morning. And I'm like, wow, why is it that if I were to put a Muslim image on a church, I'd go over to Buckhead Church or North Point Ministries or something, go put up a Muslim, picture, a big image, which you're not supposed to do. But let's say I put up an image of Muhammad, then that would be a hate crime against Muslims because of the image of Muhammad. And they go, it's just, don't worry about it. It's just a church. But God forbid you take something that's religious and represents Christianity and put it on the fence in front of a mosque. You notice they called it Islamic Center. I read that out loud, not a mosque. So that way we would be a little less, because mosque has sort of taken a bad tonation because of some of what we believe goes on inside those mosques. But just pointing that out, Islamic Center sounds so much more religious-like almost church. Mosque sounds like radical Islamic terrorism cell. I mean, I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying that's the way the media has started contorting their reporting. Anyway, so I got to thinking, why is it that a religious symbol representing Christianity put on a fence that didn't destroy the fence, it wasn't graffiti, it was just hanging there, you left something. I'm not even sure that's a crime, leaving a painting somewhere. But let's say somehow it is. How does that become a hate crime? Well, here's the main thing. I wouldn't be surprised if someone that is on the left put this image of Jesus on the fence and planted it there, because I don't think this is what a Christian would have done. I don't think a true practicing Christian would have done anything but be loving to these people, and perhaps if we had a difference, just forgive and forget. So it doesn't surprise me that these kinds of things happen, and then we're dumb enough on talk radio, me included, to be talking about it and to be writing about it and publishing the story so that we can stir up Christians to be upset about the attack on Christianity in our country. And as we're doing that, let me tell you what we're doing. We're saying it's becoming kind of chic, kind of popular. There's an actual popular group there to beat up on Christianity. Because look, more and more people are doing it. And even the government's saying it's a hate crime. Because they know the government will side with the side of hate on anything other than the majority. If you're in the majority of anything, you can't be hated on. You're a Christian. 70% of the country is Christian. There's no hate crimes against you. You're a white person. You're the majority population of the country. There's no hate crimes against you. You're a middle class, moderate, regular Christian, put religious out of it, just normal person. There's not, unless you're minority, there's no hate crimes against you. So the more we concoct these stories where something that represents the majority, Christianity, white people, etc., is placed in the fray of the minority, and even though no one's hurt, no property's damaged, no harm is done, it's a hate crime. And the more we get outraged at it being called a hate crime, the more we're kind of buying into propelling the cattle call on the left that it's okay to break down. Christianity's not all good. It's okay. Christianity, this is the kind of thing Christianity does. It's okay to kind of erode that from our society because Christianity is a big problem for the left. The more pure form of it, not the 70% that all say they're Christians, but the people that actually practice daily their Christian beliefs. It's more powerful than the fear, the hate mongering, and the influence of leftist politics. It's the one overwhelming factor. It was the one thing, if there was any, that drove Donald Trump to victory last year. The evangelical crowd overwhelmingly and unwavering supported Donald Trump. Even after you can grab her by the Access Hollywood bus. Even after that, they still didn't waver. because Christians know to forgive. Christians know that no one is perfect, and they're not seeking perfection except in Christianity and in Jesus. I'm not trying to be a preacher here in a sermon today, but the left can't penetrate that. So the best way to do it is backdoor it and put up images like this. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't put it up. Somebody that's leftist or liberal put this up there because they knew how it would be reacted to, and it continues to peddle the idea to people that are kind of questioning their faith, their Christianity. It's okay because society now accepts it. Look, it's being called a hate crime to do something like this with your faith. We've got to stop falling for these traps.
The Brian Crabtree Show on demand is brought to you by Bright Path Mortgage. Brilliant mortgage solutions. BrightPath.com. The Brian Crabtree Show, live in Atlanta, afternoon starting at 4 on Biz 1190, Biz1190.com, and the Biz 1190 mobile app.